As an artist, I'm often brought opportunities where the person will be like, hey, if you do this, it will be great exposure. This is something I think a lot of artists face, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today. But it's also controversial in the sense that, should we be doing work for free? I want to tell you a story about this exhibition I did. This was long ago, I think like 2011 or 2012. Like, before I really started selling my work professionally, I was mostly making artwork as a hobby. I was trying to sell it, but I wasn't succeeding at it by any means. But I got this opportunity to do an exhibition. It was put on in the London Underground by Art Below. It was called Art of Angel. That was the exhibition title. And most of the people would put their artwork on billboards, and they would pay for access to the billboard for exposure, right? In the London Underground, which is amazing. The tube stations get so much foot traffic. So this is a good thing if you think about it only in the level of exposure. But for me, I didn't pay for my space. They offered it to me for free. Because if I was asked to pay for it, I would have had to turn it down. I was a college student at the time. I had no extra money to pay $500 or $1,000. I think the price was somewhere around that range. I had no way to pay for something like that. But they offered it to me for free. And so I was willing to do this. Now, they also had an exhibition that went along with this. It was like one weekend. And what they would do for the artists is they would take the original file that they used to make that billboard, and then they would make smaller prints of it to sell to people, a limited edition, very exclusive print that they could only get there. There was an exhibition opening, and I was offered the opportunity to be able to go there, but I'm from Kansas, and so there is no way I could afford at the time to be able to fly myself to London, pay for hotels, all of that type of stuff. And so I didn't attend. And what I know now in hindsight is, if you are an artist and you're trying to sell your work at an event like this, you probably need to show up. I mean, if you really want to sell something. Otherwise, you're not going to sell anything, because people want to speak to the artist who they are purchasing from. The one exception to this is if you are a really well-known artist, you don't necessarily have to show up. But if you're a nobody or kind of a beginner like I was at the time, I needed to be there to talk to people, to sell my work, to close the deal. And I wasn't, and so I didn't sell any prints. Now, I didn't put out any money for this billboard, but I didn't make anything either. It was a relatively low effort endeavor for me, though. All I had to do was give them a good high resolution image of my painting, and they did all the rest. And so for me, in the level of weighing it out, exposure versus effort, I got lots of exposure, and I even made a few sales of a print that I made based on this painting on my website. So I did make a little bit of money out of it. To look at the big picture though, for my art career, it hasn't helped it at all. In fact, no one even knows that I have done this exhibition in the past unless they read my CV or maybe go through a very long ago blog post on my website. But for the most part, it hasn't really done anything for me. And so this is just one example of how exposure on the surface seems great, but in reality, it might not be doing very much for you. More commonly than this, artists are asked to do things for exposure, like put their artwork up in a coffee shop or a restaurant, or paint a mural for public art display. Now, there are different viewpoints on whether these types of things are good to do for an artist in exchange for exposure. On the one hand, if you are an artist who is just doing this for a hobby, then exposure might be a great thing for you. You just want to share your work with the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. Seize any opportunity that you feel passionate about that will help you connect with the world and share your work. But on the other hand, if you are trying to make this into a business, you need to pay your rent or mortgage based on the artwork that you sell. Doing anything in exchange for only exposure is a serious mistake. Exposure should always be paired with income, every single time. So depending on where you're at in your artistic journey, whether you're wanting to make this a career or whether it's just a hobby and you don't really care if you get money for it, these are the things to think about before you take those opportunities that are only exposure. And also, it's important to note that if you are doing something for exposure, when you look at the actual ability to make money off of it, you want to make sure it's realistic. For example, if a coffee shop is like, hey, you can hang your artwork in here and they're for sale, and then the people can call you if they want to buy something, and then you can come down here and sell it to them. Do not ever take those opportunities. Only do coffee shop shows where they sell the work for you and then hold the money for you and then give it to you like at the end of the month or something. Don't do a show that you have to go down there, because the customers who are in there like drinking their coffee or eating their meal, they're not going to wait for you to get there. And most oftentimes they're not going to drive back down there to purchase it. These are impulse buys. They are not going to a coffee shop with the thought in mind to purchase artwork. They're going in there for coffee. And if they happen to see something they like and it's affordable and they can buy it as they're there and before they leave, then great. But if they have to like wait on the artist or come back down there again later, it's probably never going to lead to a sale. At least that's my experience, because I did lots of these types of shows when I first started out trying to be an artist. And I say trying to be an artist because I was not successful at it. These were huge mistakes. You don't make very much money doing this. Now, you do get some experience hanging work on coffee shop walls. You get experience negotiating different terms of things with the coffee shop. You also get experience with your artwork getting damaged and people treating you poorly as an artist because they don't respect you and they're really just using you to decorate their walls instead of purchasing artwork for their walls. So yeah, I mean, you can tell I have kind of a negative attitude toward coffee shop art shows, or really anything that artists do in exchange for exposure. Like I said before, since I'm a full-time artist and I do this to pay my bills, then I only do things where exposure comes along with money also. And definitely share your perspective in the comments if you've ever had any successes from things that were only exposure, or if it's all been failures. If you agree with me, disagree with me, love to hear what you think. And check out this video if you'd like to learn over 30 different revenue streams for artists. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.